This is a video tutorial for lesson 7.7, and this will be our fourth lesson on factoring quadratics, and actually most likely our last lesson on factoring quadratics, but they will be followed with a full review of all four of the methods to practice before we take the test on this section. So there are a few questions to practice just to make sure we haven't forgotten what we're looking for. So I'm going to go ahead and fill in what I know straight away, x squared and 16, and then I'm looking for the numbers that multiply to make 16 and add together to make -10. I know the signs are going to be the same here. And as I'm trying to get a negative, I already know this is going to be negative. So I'm just going to fill this in here. You can try, find the different ones. What you should find is that it's 2 and 8. So 2 times 8 is 16. And more importantly for this one, -2 add -8 gives me -10. And then as I'm looking at this one, I know x squared is x times x. X times -8 is -8x, and x times -2 gives me -2x. So there's the first one. X squared and 49, well, I can fill in my x squared and -49 straight away. This one, just two terms. So this is the one where I'm looking for which number multiplies together to make 49. I know it's 7 and 7, but I also know the signs must be different on this. So I need one positive and one negative. And then as I'm filling in my grid, obviously x times x is x squared. X times, this should be -7x, of course. There we go. X times -7 gives me -7x. X times +7 gives me 7x. And we're finished with that one. And oops, looks like the answer is already given for this one. That's a little bit of a mistake there. So you check the GCF first. You can see that it's 2. So divide by 2, and then think of numbers at times to make 2 and add to make 3, which would clearly be 2 and 1. And then you can find out the outside factors, but then you can also include that GCF at the start. Don't forget the 2, that's really important. Now on question 4, there's no GCF on this one at all. So this is where I'm just multiplying the first and the last terms together. So 3 times -4 is going to give me -12. I'm really just interested in 12, but I am going to fill in those two terms that I know already. So 3x squared and -4. So numbers that multiply to make 12 and subtract to make 4. You can try a few combinations, but you're going to find that it's 2 and 6. 6 take away 2 is 4. So I need 6x and I need -2x. And then now this is where I do my GCFs around the outside. So going downwards here first, GCF of 3 and 6, they're both in the 3 times table. GCF for letters, we pick the smaller of the two. So x is smaller than x squared. Leading term is negative, so I know this is negative, and the GCF of 2 and 4 is 2. Don't both have x's, so there's no x here. Going across, GCF for 3 and -2 is just 1, and the GCF for x squared and x is x. So although this term is negative, as long as the first term is positive, I'm going to put a positive GCF here, not a negative GCF. And for 6 and -4, they're both in the 2 times table. And if I'm sensible here, I will check my numbers just to make sure they work. So like 2 times 3 is 6, 2 times -2 is -4, 1 times 3 is 3, 1 times -2 is -2, just to make sure I have this one correct as well. And of course, my 2 is +2. And that covers the questions that we've been doing in the first 3 lessons of this unit. And there are all the full answers. We had a little spoiler on question 3, but that's okay. All right, so let's take a look at this question here. X squared plus 5x plus 6. So I can see that it's 2 and 3. So I can fill in 2x and 3x here, and I would have x plus 2, x plus 3. Now, the reason I've showed you this question again is because we're like, did we already do this? This seems a little easy. Yeah, it is. There's another way we can do this question as well. So as we're trying to find the factors of 6, I want to know which two numbers multiply to make 6. I can do this in desmos. I can say xy equals 6. That means as they're next to each other, that means multiply. So which numbers multiply to make 6? And as I go back to the question, I also want them to add together to make 5. Now, I'm not so worried about this one. On my grids, when I fill these in, I always put my little plus sign here. So this and this have to add to make +5. So that's what I'm going to put, x plus y equals 5. And this is actually a system of equations, which we covered in Unit 5. So to solve a system, what we do is we look at where the graphs actually cross. Now, if I click on here, you can see that it actually puts dots where the graphs intersect. So if I click on the dot, you can see the answers 3 and 2, which is exactly what we had when we did this by hand. Now there is another dot here, and actually notice it's just the same answer, 2 and 3. So we can also find the numbers doing this as well. But more importantly, you're always going to get the signs correct if you actually use desmos as well. So when we're trying to figure out, like, is it a positive, is it a negative, desmos will take care of that for you. So that could be something that's really powerful if you're really struggling on doing those factors, and perhaps if your times table skills aren't quite as good as we were hoping for. So just so you can see again, here was the picture. There were my answers 3 and 2. You can fill in the x squared, you can fill in the 6, but notice now you know the 2 and 3, you can also fill those in here and then work through the question. Now, for ones like that, that might not be too important for you. But ones like this might be really difficult if we're trying to find the factors of 8 times 15, or 8 times negative 15 is negative 120. That could be a real problem for this question. I've started to list all my factors here, and I'm trying to subtract to get 2. And I did 5 factors. I didn't even find the answer. So for particularly big numbers, I might actually want to go through and try using desmos for this. So my last number this time, I didn't put negative 15 because I know I have to times these together first. So 8 times negative 15 is negative 120. You could obviously type that in desmos if you didn't know that. So xy equals negative 120. And as I go back to the question, I know it says subtract here to make 2, but as I'm looking in my grid, I'm really trying to add 2 numbers. It might just be that one of them is negative though. So I want to add the 2 numbers together to make 2. So x plus y equals 2. Here's my graph. Look at where they cross. Negative 10 and 12. And yes, that would work. 12 take away 10 does indeed give me 2. But notice I have the signs the right way now as well. So I know it's negative 10 and positive 12. And then I can fill those 2 in here. The 8x squared came from here. Negative 15 came from here. And then you can do your GCF like you did last lesson. But that might be something that's really helpful for students who are struggling on the factoring. So today's lesson, we're going to look at more special cases. You might want to practice that desmos method in the last lesson as well as doing it by hand, just so we can see where we're at. So we've done a few difference of squares. We've only done ones that start with x squared. So we know that we're looking for the number that times to make 25. So 5 times 5 is 25. So I have one positive and one negative because I have a subtract here, and we've got that answer. This one we've seen multiple times. Notice you could also do it on here as well if you needed to. 2 numbers times to make negative 25. And there was no x's in the middle, so x plus y is 0. That could also get us that question as well. Now, this one doesn't start with x squared. You can check the GCF. There's no GCF. If you want to do like last lesson, do 81 times 4, you could do that as well. That would also work for this question. But we can do the same thing we did before. 4, 2 times 2. Oops. 2 times negative 2. And then 81 is 9 times 9. And then we're actually done. So these are both squares. So I do the square root of this one, 4, 2 and negative 2. And then I do the square root of this one, 81, 9 and 9. And we're actually finished. Now you could fill in the grid just to make sure you do get 81x squared minus 4, but you'll find that that is actually the answer. If you do it on desmos, 81 times negative 4 is negative 324. And you want the middle terms to add to make 0, and you'll get answers of negative 18 and 18. And then you could fill in those terms. First term, last term, and then there's the 18 and negative 18. And then you could do the GCF around the outside like you saw before, and that will get you the answer. I would say for this one, it's easier to do it by hand than it is to use the desmos for this one, me personally. Now, we've done difference of squares. We haven't talked specifically about a perfect square, although we've had questions that have had perfect square answers. So sometimes when we notice that the last number is a square, rather than listing all the factors of 9, we might just want to think about what number multiplies together to make 9. So in this case, it would be 3 times 3. And that should be my answer straight away. I know the signs are the same, and I'm trying to get positive 6. So x and 3, and I'm done. If you want to just fill in the rest of the grid just to make sure that this does work, you will actually see, look, 3x plus 3x is 6x, and I got my 9, so I know this is the correct answer. Could use desmos as well. That last number is 9. I'm trying to add together to get the middle number, which is 6, and you'll also see that it's 3 and 3. And you can fill in those 2 terms here with the x squared and 9 that you already know, and then you can take the answer from there as well. This one here, we will check our GCF first with it starting with 4x squared. This one's not good. This one does not have a GCF, so we can't do that. So I'm going to be using that method from last lesson where I would want to multiply this and this together. But before we do that, notice that 25 is a square number. Notice 4 is a square number as well. So if we notice that, we can actually save ourselves a little time on this one. 25, 5 and 5, 4, 2 and 2. I want the signs to be the same. And I'm trying to get negative 20, so I know I'm going to need negatives here as well. So I could just write down straight away 2x minus 5, 2x minus 5. If you fill in the rest of the grid, you'll indeed see that you do get negative 20x, but that might be a little quicker than multiplying by 4 to get 100 and then trying to do the question like you did last lesson. Now, if you're using desmos, that's exactly what you're going to do. You're going to do 4 times 25 is 100, and then say the middle numbers have to add together to make negative 20, and then find where these graphs cross. So I know my two numbers are negative 10 and 10, so I can fill this in here now, negative 10x, and then you can do exactly like you did last lesson. But for perfect squares, try and look for those numbers at the end. If we can find those numbers that multiply to make this the same number, that might be easier than having to do the method that we did last lesson. So it's all about making questions as easy as possible. If you don't notice it, you will get to the right answer though. Now, the reason why we don't want to try and do that is for numbers like this, the GCF is 1 for this question, so that's not going to help us. 81 times 16 is a huge number. Trying to find factors for that would be really difficult. 16 though, 4 times 4. So I can fill that in straight away. And 81x squared, that's going to be 9x and 9x. Signs are going to be the same. I'm trying to get positive 72, so I know that these are both going to be positive. And you will actually find if you complete the grid here, 9 times 4 is 36. Oops, 9 times 4 is 36. You do actually indeed get 72x, so I know that this is the correct answer. If we do panic and have to use desmos, 81 times 16 is 1,296. I want the two numbers together to add to make 72. And you can see that they cross at 36 and 36, those two numbers we saw earlier. And then once you have this term plugged in here and this term plugged in here, you could do the GCF like we did last time. The only thing to really stress for this question is with 9x plus 4 and 9x plus 4, you should be putting 9x plus 4 all squared as it's the same factor. So repeated factors, we should be putting squares. There are a couple of questions to practice on here. So I will skip through and then we'll look at the answers at the end, and then you can always stay for help if you needed to. But you should practice these questions just to make sure that you really do understand. And there's those answers just so you can see. Well, those were the last 4 anyway. These were the special ones. You have been reminded to also do work on AA6 and also while you're waiting, but that will be the assignment for later. All right, let's try a few together just to make sure we understand what we're doing on the extension questions. So these are the ones we haven't seen before particularly. So 20x squared minus 45. I could move that 20 to the end and make 900. I could definitely do that. The only problem might be for this question, there is a GCF. Whenever there's a GCF, we want to divide by that GCF to make sure we don't miss that factor. So don't just go ahead and multiply 20 and 45 without thinking. Check for that GCF first. So the GCF is 5 for this question. So I'm going to want to divide by 5. So divide by 5 and divide by 5. So that would give me 4x squared. And 45 divided by 5 is 9. Now notice this is one of those special ones again. So I got to get 4x squared. I can do 2x times 2x. And I didn't really give myself much room here. And 9 I know is 3 times 3. But I'm trying to get negative 9. So I know they're going to be different for this question. You can fill in the rest just to make sure that you do get 4x squared minus 9. But there's my answers. 2x plus 3, 2x minus 3. But importantly, don't forget the number that we divided by at start. GCF, the F in GCF is factor, so it's very important we include this. If we only include those two answers, this answer is automatically wrong. And we should know it's automatically wrong because 2x times 2x is 4x squared, but our question says 20x squared. So we got to multiply by 5. 5 times 4x squared is 20x squared. So really important that we include that GCF when we do these questions. Here's the next question. I typed in the GCF ahead of time. I can see that it's 2. So that means I'm going to divide by 2. So when I divide this one by 2, I got to divide this one by 2, and I got to divide this one by 2. So 18 divided by 2 is 9. 24 divided by 2 is 12. And 8 divided by 2 is 4. Now, I could just use that method from last lesson, and like I did before, but I'm noticing quickly, though, that 9x squared, to get my 9x squared, I can just do 3x times 3x. So I want to try that first. 3x and 3x. And I notice for 4, I notice that's 2 and 2. I notice the signs are the same and they're both positive. So I'm going to leave this as positive 2 and positive 2. And let's just check. 3 times 2x is 6x. 2 times 3x is 6x. And 2 times 2 is 4. And notice if I add these two together, I do get my 12x. So this is looking pretty good for me. So I want 3x plus 2 and 3x plus 2. And I also want 2 as a factor. So I'm not quite sure what happened here. I think it's that one, but clearly there's a mistake here, which I'm going to go fix in a second. So this should be 3x plus 2 and 3x plus 2, not 3x plus 4 and 3x plus 4. That was just a little typo on that question there. Third one, 6x squared plus 10x minus 4. Did my GCF again, it's 2. So when I divide by 2, I'm just going to write down the answer this time. 3x squared plus 5x minus 2. Now, for this one, 2 is certainly not a square number, and neither is 3, so I know it's not this one. So this is one where I did last lesson. I got to multiply these two numbers together. So 3 times negative 2 is negative 6. So I'm trying to think of numbers that multiply together to make 6, but subtract to make 5. So 1 and 6 looks like that works perfectly for this question. And it looks like we don't have that answer here again, but hey, they will fix that before you see this in real time. So I want 6x. And I want negative 1x, because 6 take away 1 gives me 5. And then as I do the GCF for this, 3 and negative 1 is 3. X squared and x is x. 6 and negative 2 is going to be positive 2, because the leading term is positive. 3x squared and 6x, that will be 3. And x squared and x is x. Oh, actually 3 and 1. I apologize. The GCF for 3 and 1 is just 1. Let me fix that there. There we go, 3x. The reason I knew straight away there was a mistake here is 3 times 3 is 9, but I know it's supposed to be 3, so I realized this had to be 1. And good reason for checking your answers. Negative 1 and negative 2 is 1, but as the leading term is negative, I know my answer is going to be negative for this one. So my answer for this question then should be, don't forget the 2 that we divided by at the start, 2 times 3x minus 1 and x plus 2. Oh, actually, there it is. The answer was there. I just missed it at the start. So that question is perfectly good. And that's how we check our questions. There's the answers if you just want to see them all in one go. Yeah. I just want to check that one more time, because it actually said that it was, yeah, the correct answer was listed at the end. It's just that the answer choice was wrong. So it was just a typo as we were going through. But that answer that you can see there was indeed correct. That does it for this lesson. This is the exercise where you want to practice AA6, but you really should go back and finish AA4 and AA5 if you haven't, because they're kind of the prerequisite skills for this one.